Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a review today. Tactics Talk gameplay review. In fact, we're going to deep dive. Something I haven't done for a while, I think. Got a new player, Tikky, Tikky underscore in his Panzer 4S Schmaturn. This is a tier 6 German premium tank, medium tank. Used to be a version of the Panzer 4 that had the Schmaturn, something like that, turret on it. And I played the fool out of it back then. I have a Panzer 4S, which is now a specific separate tank with that turret on it. I still like it quite a bit. It used to be quite the beast in the old plus or minus 4, I think, tiering system, when the gun was quite effective even 4 tiers down. So I like this tank. It's a cool tank. He is here on Himmelskova or Malendorf, however you want to look at it. Coffee's good this morning, guys. I hope you're having a good day, by the way. I hope you're having a good day. So like I said, we're going to deep dive because this is a new player, relatively low number of battles, and there's a lot of goodness in here to talk about a whole broad brush of things. So we're going to deep dive. Strap in, guys, for Tikky. Thanks for sending this in. I am going to go over your stats. This is not meant to shame anybody or belittle anybody or make fun of anybody. I want to see where you are, and I'm going to see if we can pull a couple things out of that for you. And then we're going to take a look at the battle, and we're going to talk about what you did, where you went. We can talk about initial position. We're going to talk about reacting to the battle. We're going to talk about reading the mini-map. We're going to talk about supporting teammates. All of the things that I can think of in here to try to help you get moving along in your World of Tanks journey. So first things second, we're going to go ahead and jump into his stats over here. All right, so here's Tikky. New player with only 4,000 battles. Doing pretty well, actually, at 49%, so that's an average win rate. Nicely done as far as that goes. The hits are really low. This is sometimes skewed low because low-tier tanks tend to have, some of them, especially in Tier 1, 2, and 3, have autocannons that blast a bunch of shots out. However, keep an eye on that. You would rather have that about 70% or higher. 70% or higher. So when you look at individual tanks, take a look at how you're doing on individual tanks, and if you're 70% or higher, that's the ballpark you want to be, especially as a new player. Average damage is low, as you would expect a low-tier player for the moment. I think he's only got a Tier 7 maybe at this point, as is experience. So don't read too much into that. You would have to look at it by tier, but 255 is pretty low. If we scroll down here, we see that Tier 5 is your most played tier, and if we look at a average damage of 255 at Tier 5, that is extremely low. All right, a good chunk of your battles are here at Tier 5, so your damage needs to go up, as you might expect with a 49% win rate and a brand new player. That's the question. How do I play this game? How do I do more damage and get more wins and more experience? There you go. You know, that's the bottom line, isn't it? Not much else to see here. Low, fairly low on the arty, so I don't think it's arty necessarily that's hurting your hit rate. That will hurt it a little bit, but it's not like you have a inordinate amount of arty played. A lot of different nationalities, concentrating on the US, USSR, Germany, and Britain, it looks like at the moment. All right, let's dig through these numbers just a little bit. Victories, defeats, yada yada. Battle survived is not bad at 31%. That's actually pretty good for a new player. I would aim for 40. That's about where you want to be. I'm going to give you some numbers here. These are not numbers that if you hit, something will automatically happen. They are generalizations. And if you prioritize battle survived over doing damage or anything else, i.e. you hide in the back in a bush, that's not the intent of talking about the numbers this way, right? But you would like to be closer to 40%. 31 is a great starting point for a new player, though. That could indicate a couple things, though. It might mean you're a little too careful. It might mean you're just a little bit too careful. If you're mostly a TD player, which it doesn't look like you are, though you're pretty evenly spread across these, that can also skew that a little bit. So again, the numbers have got to be taken in the context of how you play, the tanks you like to play, and those kinds of things, all right? So there are a lot of what-ifs is what I'm getting at in here. Excuse me. Damage ratio is low. That needs to be a 1.0. What that means is you're doing as much as you give. That is a baseline. You must aim for that if you want to be any kind of decent at this game. You've got to aim for that. Home office and a dog, man. Home office and a dog. 2 turntables and a microphone. All right, here we go. Damage ratio. We've already talked about. Destruction ratio, 0.93. Same thing. You want to kill one for every time you die. Ideally, that would be higher. Ideally, that would be higher right there. Armor use, that depends a lot on the types of tanks you play. 0.26, I can't read too much into that right now. Base capture points and defense points, you have a bunch more base capture points. I used to say that you wanted your base defense points to be higher than your base capture points. I've adjusted that a little bit for a couple reasons. I think they should be about even. Right now it looks like you're going to the enemy cap too much. That would be my assumption based on the numbers. Most people have more capture points than base defense points. The reason being, capturing the cap wins more. I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. Capturing the cap in general wins more than defending the cap. I said wins more. I'm not saying it's not important. Defending the cap can increase your win rate by quite a bit depending on what it currently is. So context matters here. If you're a 55% player or more and your cap and base defense points look like this, then you're probably making the right decisions on when to cap and when to defend. But if you're a brand new player and you have a bunch more capture points and your win rate is still around 50% or lower, you're more than likely going to the cap too much. Does that make sense? So there is a skill level at which you understand which one of those two you need to be doing. And then if I look at somebody with 60% win rate and they look like this, where they've got twice the capture to defense, they're making the right decisions. They're making the right decisions on when they can cap. Capping is something that you have to create the conditions for. You don't just drive onto the cap. And that's what generally a lot of newer players and experienced players will do, is they will try to cap at the wrong time when the conditions are not met, and they'll end up losing games because of it. If you're a very good player and your numbers look like that, I keep looking over there, but they're, the screen's over there anyway, and your numbers look like that, then very good player, then you're making the right decisions. If you're a new player and you're not winning 55 or more and your numbers look like that, then more than likely you're making bad decisions on when to cap. All right. The rest of the numbers are all of the averages based on the damage you're doing and the tiering. Like I said, your damage cause is low, so we're going to talk about that a little bit as we go. Tikky sent me a couple replays. He had a Panzer IV one earlier. I don't think I used it. This one, though, I thought was a better replay, as he said in his note to me. And we'll use this one because I think it shows a little bit better and gives us some more understanding. Because as it is on Maladorf, Himmel's Kova here, this map is fairly unloved by new players. Why? Because they die on it so easily. It is a difficult map to do well on, but good players love it because it is very open and has a lot of possibilities. New players will get on this, they'll drive around a little bit, somehow get spotted and get annihilated because the crossfires, the map is so open, everybody's shooting at them from every direction. So they take a hit or they get lit and they go to ground quite a bit. They also tend to hang around cap a lot, is another thing that I see. And they don't really understand that the fight is up in the northeast on the hill, the one that matters. All right, so there is a critical position or two, sometimes three, but one or two, as a general rule on all maps. Those can change. Again, context matters. Depending on game setup, match setup, tiering, platoons, a lot of other things. Sometimes those are non-meta moves can be very effective, but there is generally a meta critical position on nearly every map that wins the map more than it loses. Sometimes a lot more than it loses. The hill, all the way up there in the northeast on Maladorf, is that critical position on this map. As a general rule, remember I'm saying as a general rule, you win that hill, you win. Right? Unless you win it, get completely mauled, and you win it by one tank and you lost 10 to their 3 or something silly. Okay? Again, context matters. But as a general rule, that's where you want to go. All right, let's get going on this thing quickly with Tikky's note to me. A bit of an improvement last game I sent for Miserable Monday in the same tank was on Kampenberg Novica. All right, I find that interesting, and that is a term that a lot of players will use on this map, and I'm going to, again, at the risk, I'm not trying to insult anybody or make fun of anybody, but as a general rule, I think that if you're calling it that, you don't understand much about the game. And even if you're a good player, I might say that as well. Now, if you say it because a lot of people camp on it, then noted. If you say it because that's the only way you think it can be played, that you're wrong. I guess is what I'm getting at with that. So I find that interesting. I call it that on occasion as well. Yes, there are people that camp on it. But it's quite a dynamic map, to be quite honest. It's a very dynamic map if you know what you're doing. All right. Let's see what happens. We're going to get started, and we'll talk to Tikky. There goes the one, and we are off to the races. So we're going to go ahead and turn. We make a little slight turn. We sort of turn, go forward. We're trying to find the clutch or something. Oh boy. And we're driving forward without very much purpose. And we're sort of, okay, wandering over here. Like, I don't know if there's, maybe you've got something going on with your keyboard or something there. And then we turn back in. And we get spotted. All right. In your note, you said, I started driving off cap and then I got spotted. Well, actually, you really didn't make a move to get off cap, and then you moved back towards them and you got spotted. This map has several scout positions that if you don't get out of the cap or into a bush quickly, you're going to get spotted. There's one right back here, and there's a corresponding bush for your team right here, which your scout didn't go to. And then there's this line of trees in the middle, which is better for the north spawn because it's closer to them than you, and they can get into those bushes there with a scout with decent camo. So you were sort of trying to get out of the way, but the reality of the situation is you put yourself in this position by not getting out of here. And if you're going to go up the hill, my advice is to make that 90 right, fade to the south, and just go. You can go where the Panther M10 went, about right there along the edge of this lake is about as far north as you want to be to not get spotted by guys running into these bushes. The only way that those guys will get spotted here, and the Cromwell might be a little bit close, by a guy getting in this bush is if they actually YOLO into the swamp. And that happens. You just got to watch for it. If that happens, I always dive off the right, go just dig myself out of the lake right here and come around. But I use that as an option to dive out. All right. So right off the bat, initial positioning, hesitant, really not going to the right place. I'd have taken this Schmaturn and I'd have gone up here and backed up my guys on the hill right off the bat. All right. So that's my advice to you on the initial positioning. Now we're spotted, and we feel like we got to get into some cover. The JP makes a foolish move. I guess he's shot or something. He gets immediately spotted. We get hit by a Firefly. That's good information, actually. I now know where their Firefly is. If you don't have that turned on, turn it on. All right, that's the hit detector. That azimuth then tells me that their Firefly, that's SA. Nobody's lit on the map, but now I know where that dude is, at least right now. And we'll go ahead and hide up here. We get hit by the Firefly twice, and we're down a bunch of hit points from the Firefly. We get our commander dead. We need to fix him immediately. There we go. So we figured that out. Now be careful here, because these windows have holes in them, and you can be shot through here. This is why this position is not bueno. It's not a great position. You, the JP, the E25, the Comet, and the IKV 65-2 have made a conscious decision to not play this game for the next 3 to 4 or 5 minutes. The only way you become relevant in this game is if they push across the map, or you get some kind of YOLO scout into their backfield, which is highly unlikely. And even if that happens, you get a couple fleeting shots, he dies, and there you go. Same thing for the YOLO. Let's talk about this, though. Critical terrain, I say, is up here in the northeast. Yes, you can win the game down here in the field with a good, strong push, but I don't see that developing from either team. So if your overall game plan is to go against the meta and hope that the against the meta happens without being the initiator of the against the meta, that's a terrible plan. And it's going to lose games for you and your team. All right? All right, here we go.
One of our tracks is damaged.
And now the Artie. And now we're hiding out in the windows, and thank goodness there's not somebody across there with enough vision. There's that Firefly. So you knew he was there. Now that's been verified. Next thing I want to talk about is paying attention to the minimap, where things are. We're going to do a real quick early one of those right now because your 3485 has made a bold move. Your 3485 is up here at D7. He's probably not long for this world, but he may create some possibilities of lighting guys because there's usually some campers hanging out right here in the E5-4 kind of area up in these bushes. When you see things like that, get prepared. Gird your loins, ready thyself. And what I would have done right there is driven right out to this bush a little bit just so my turret's around and start looking for those lights that are going to come up because there's going to be some deliciousness potentially. So it looks like maybe you noticed it right there. There we go. Yep, 30-45. That's a great bush to get into. He's got the little flag on there too. So he just took a shot. What did he shoot at? You don't know because you're looking through the soda straw. We're shooting a bush. Guess what? All right, mini-map awareness, man. It's down. It's over here. It's over here. But in the game, it's down right. Take a look at that. Look for the lights. You knew the 30-45 was going up there. That's what you were looking for from him. And he just gave you, and I don't know if you can necessarily get a highlight on him. He may be a little bit too low, but we're not even investigating it. All right. Great players will see that faster, and they'll get their gun online faster, and they'll reduce the enemy hit points faster because they're paying attention to stuff like that. You do realize that's your bush. If they got a scout into that bush, that would be absolutely amazing, and more than likely you'd be spotted if that happened. If there was a scout in that bush, the first time you fired right there, you would have been spotted. I'm kind of surprised you weren't anyway, but it looks like they don't have anyone close enough with spotting range, and they must not have anyone in their corresponding bush, although you may just be covered up by their bush over there. When you shoot through a bush and you can see through it, that bush right in front of you, see how I go back to your view, it's not obscuring it? That means that that bush is not going to give you any camo once you fire. It's just going to be your tanks firing, or your tanks camo, and it's going to be your while firing camo, which is doo-doo. So you're taking a risk by shooting if that bush is not dark. You may want to do that. Maybe you know they're outside of draw range. There's lots of reasons you might want to do that. I will do that also to get the highlight on someone, to pick it out, and we'll talk about that a little while later because there's a situation where I think that would have helped you as well. But you are taking a chance. And meanwhile, the Super Hellcat. Looks like we finally see him, but we don't really investigate it. And we scoot forward and like, oh, there was a Hellcat there. All right, so we're hanging out. And we're getting to 2 minutes. Remember when I said you were purposely taking yourself out of the game for 2 to 5 minutes or 3 to 5 or whatever I said? We're already at almost 2 minutes. And we have done nothing but take 2 hits. So here we are. 4 of us. Just the 4 of us. We can make it if we try. You gotta love the E25 camping. That's fantastic. And we're kind of hanging out. Now, in your note, you were saying I wanted to find the scout. I gotta find the scout. All right, let me ask you this question. Why? Why? What's he doing? Is he developing a push? Are guys taking hits? You don't know because you didn't check, but I would always be using a little bit more camera technique to go, what's going on behind me? Are these guys being hit? Is Artie pounding them? Are they spotted? What's happening? The Firefly just got Artied, so that's good news. These guys are doing a little bit. At least the Firefly is managing to get himself spotted. E25 is useless. He's sitting in a bush, and these two are sitting back here. So what I'm saying here is, instead of being in zoom so much, go ahead and come out of it and zoom out and go, all right, what the hell's going on? Artie. Oh, good, Caro. Thanks, Caro. That's good. But you got to note it. All right, Caro's not really playing. He's just sitting there. At least he's holding kind of this area of the map. Although you wouldn't expect anything to come there because the 30-45 is right here and would probably see anything trying to cross through, would definitely see anything trying to cross through the swamp there. And this is what I'm talking about on analyzing the mini-map and understanding the maps and taking a look at it. And this will come with experience and knowing the maps, but it also requires you to gather SA. And gathering SA is hard to do when I'm staring down through the soda straw and I'm shooting into bushes, wondering where a scout is that is irrelevant. And I know that's not a word. Not relevant, right? The scout is not relevant right now. All right, we'll talk about that a little while later. All right, we just sort of stare at bushes. I know that scout's in there. There goes the Firefly. Good information. We shoot into the bush. Hopefully you noted that. Make sure you're paying attention to what dies and checking the tank rolls there. You know now the Firefly died. Nobody else was really seen there. Also, gather some SA. What's going on with these guys? Oh, it looks like the E25 is moving around. IKV maybe took a hit, but nobody's pushing across. And we push forward, and we're looking at a bush. And maybe it's that bush. And was it this bush? Maybe there's someone in that bush. That bush? That bush, no. let's just say one thing about that. You know you didn't hit anything because you saw the shell hit the ground behind the bush. So if you're doing those kind of exploratory shots, sometimes I'll shoot and back out, and because I know I have a good chance of being spotted, I may not notice it, but I'll actually sometimes zoom out to see if I can hit that. It's all camera angle and camera technique. I could fire, immediately zoom out and go, did it hit the ground? See the puff of smoke? Okay, I didn't hit anything. Just as an example. Now what I want you to do is take a look at the mini-map and pay attention to what's going on with the team, right? Cromwell, Panther, M10, Tiger have won the hill. They're pushing into the OI and the Tiger P, which are two of the better tanks that the enemy team has. That whole fight's been going on for now almost 3 minutes, and you have not played the game. And this is important. It's for everybody who's trying to learn to be better at this game. This is so unbelievably important that you only have X amount of time, and you really only have X amount of time with your team healthy. Meanwhile, you're hanging out down here. The majority of your aggressive players are up there getting the job done, and we're not doing anything down here. We're not doing anything. We're not contributing to the team from the very beginning. And that's why most of the critical positions on the maps are places you got to get on your horse and get to. So you can create an advantage, start taking down guns and hit points, and create that steamroll effect. Sometimes it's useful to have people sitting in places like where you are. But my opinion of that is let the other people do that, because somebody will. Don't be that guy. If you want to be a 49% player, and I'm not necessarily just talking about Tikky, but anyone who's watching this video, if all you want to be is a 48, 51% player, do this and get really good at it. But that's all you're going to do. I guarantee it. All you're going to be is a 51, maybe. I think the best camping players I've seen are about 53%. They can get to about 53 by being spectacularly good at sitting in bushes and at cap and going to the defensive positions only and never really being that aggressive. All right, let's get going again. Let's give his view. There we go. So we kind of drone forward here. And we're shooting into bushes. There's the Jackson. So he's now lit. And we'll take a look over here. Staring and shoot into the bush. Now this is spectacularly dangerous right here. It really is. Because you are too close to these bushes, and every time you shoot, that bush camo goes away. And it's your shooting camo. You're just lucky there's no one smart on the enemy team that's been able to get into these positions. Probably because the 30-45 is here, they're going to be unable to do it. But if that scout was in that bush, which he's not, you've shot so many times you'd know by now, but you'd have taken a bunch of damage and maybe even got deleted with only 467. So I would be using the bushes a little bit better here if I was doing these exploratory shots. Your team's trying to figure out how to get rid of the Tiger P and the OI. Finally, the Caro is moving forward. And there's the scout we've been looking for the whole game. He has terrible view range. Look at this. I have no idea how he didn't spot you right there. That looked like to be clear from the bush. I don't know, maybe. And that was a little bit of a shot behind him. You need to lead fire that guy a little better on the movement. Maybe the bush was actually covering up and you were double bushed there somehow. I don't know. Or he just had spectacularly bad view range, or maybe his commander died. So whatever it is, we finally track this guy down and we get a little bit of damage and the scout's gone. And I go back to what I said at the beginning. Not a relevant player. Not relevant. Stop letting not relevant players affect your game until you're ready to take them down. Right? I want to be at cap because I don't want the not relevant players to maybe wander across the field. Look, there's a couple tanks there, and it does happen, but the fact is it happens much less than what's going on in the north happens. The game is one up here. All right. Now let's take a look once again. We'll get this series out of the way. Do a nice job with that. We shoot in. Not quite. And I wanted to talk about something here as far as timing shots. I don't really know why you backed out of that, to be honest. I would have stuck with that guy, because he may come back and be a factor to be shot. There we go. Backing up again. There he is. I think if he just sat there, because he and the T-30-45 have a little joust going on, and I think I would have looked at it and said, all right, I think that's probably the next game in town based on my position here. Caro is in, right? They take down the OI. Something's about to happen up there. So we'll get a shot here. That was good.
Penetration.
All right, he's out of draw. He's out of draw distance. Take a look at the terrain. You do a nice thing here. I like this. You're trying to take some blind shots on him. Blind only because he's outside of draw distance, not because he's not spotted. He's actually spotted. You just can't draw him out. But look at the terrain and look at which way he's moving. All right? For my money, we line it up, right? That was way behind him. See the line of your gun line moving right here? This is what you're looking at. And I realize you just fired and he's actually moving. But you're going to need some lead fire. So really, he's going up this hill and he's over here. Like probably in this general area here, headed up this hill a little bit. So look how much further away that shot should have been, or further lead and up and high. So that's just something to learn about, looking at the map, looking at the terrain he's likely to be on. If you can see it, that's very helpful. And then lead firing that and trying to get those blind shots, that kind of blind shot outside of draw range to be a little bit better. Looks like you're trying to do it again, and that's well behind him too, isn't it? Because he was definitely headed up this hill up here. I mean, he's probably even in this general area over here by now, because it's a pretty fast tank. Nice job trying to do it. Technique-wise, a little bit off. Jackson gets lit. And we mess around. I like that you're looking for the shot. If you really want to know what's going on, back up more until that bush goes away and you can see what the heck's going on. He might be behind a tank. He might be so low you'll never get a shot, but you don't really investigate it. That's a big, big deal in this game. Making your own shots, learning how to position and maneuver your tank, and figuring out when to look at something, when not to look at something, how to find the highlights, all of those kinds of things. You have a pretty good idea of moving the pipper around to try to find him right there, but that was just a good example in that case of, had you backed up and made the bush go away, that's one technique for getting a better idea. All right, break, big picture, look at the mini-map, look at the game. This is cleanup on aisle 3 time right now, but this game becomes much closer than it should be, and one of the biggest reasons is because the 4 of you camping at the cap don't react when it's time to react. The guys in the north have won the north. They basically won the game. However, it can still be lost if they YOLO into a bunch of guys in the trees bushed up. If they don't get any help from you guys down here closing in and keeping some of these others busy and start working crossfires, they're going to be in big trouble because they just come screaming off the hill. All these campers waste them, and you all are hanging out down here not applying pressure. When it's cleanup on aisle 2, this is not a complete raffle stomp, but it's on its way. At least it should have been. It's not going to end up being one because everyone's going to sit here. And this is one of the things that drives good players the craziest about people who hang out at cap and kind of camp back there is they do not realize when they need to move out and get their gun in the game. Fine, you've camped all day, you've hung out, you're being careful, you protected already, whatever the case may be. Maybe it was a choke point that you needed to hold on one of the 3 alley maps and you're worried someone might get around valid, but they didn't, nobody showed up, and now we're starting to gain an advantage. We've got 2,000 more hit points just about. We're pushing in, and it's time for the guys who haven't been active to get in there. And then once we all apply the pressure at once, the enemy team collapses, unless you guys sit there and do nothing. Just watch it as it goes. E-25 falls back. They have 3 artillery, so that's going to make it very difficult for them to push in, and we're just sort of hanging out here still. So I think of the 2 biggest positioning mistakes that you made, the number one was hanging out down here, feeling like you were trapped. You said that in your message. You really weren't. What you could have done in that case is, let's just talk about that real quick. Once you got covered up and stopped taking hits, you just drive straight away. And I would go angling out straight away this way. Put distance between you and them, keep the building and the bushes between you and whatever happens to be in these bushes, and you would have got away, no problem. Then you could have joined the guys on the hill, or maybe even pushed through with the T-30-45, go up in the middle here and help him, whatever the case may be. All right, let's go back to this particular action. Thank goodness thank goodness the enemy team's Eagle 7 sat behind that rock, because he took a top-tier tank out of the game. More than likely would have turned this fight had he gone up the hill. Based on what happens in the hit points as they start to even out. Now, I think he's getting some of his shots in right now. 3045 is trying to make it happen. The Comet went, at least. So your Comet's gone, but the IKV and the E25 are still sitting, and we are all trying to snipe an Eagle 7 behind a rock back here. They're starting to even it up. It's 7-4. We're staring at this guy in the rock. Now let's talk about, we're finally, this is minute 6 plus now. It's been 6, remember I said 3 to 5 minutes? 3 to 5 minutes. We're at minute 6 plus right here, and we're finally moving. Let's talk about approaches and how to do this the correct way. We do not want to drive across this field with as many guns as are left in the game, especially with the Eagle 7, when all he has to do is come out from behind this bush. He already starts bombing you. These guys in the bushes, if they have draw range, the further across, the more likely that's going to be. See this nice swamp right here? See this portion of the map you guys control right here? You know that they're all stuck in this corner. Dive down into this swamp right here and move up along this edge, and then get into this swale right here, which is where your 3045 was, and then start working on getting spots and taking shots in this area. Okay? Across the middle of the map is a tremendously bad idea. Sometimes that's the only chance you've got. I talked about time. This game is a lot about time. Sometimes you're looking at the clock, well, I have to go straight across and try to find these guys. Maybe use those bushes in the middle as best you can to cover your approach. Well, we're just kind of coming in. Finally go towards them. And they're really evening this thing up. Hit points are much closer than they were. E25's coming in here. It's 7-5. Down goes the IKV, who actually finally moved in. Their E25 died. That was good. And now the Eagle 7 is sitting right there.
Enemy armor is damaged.
All right.
Penetration.
I think you tracked him on that. And maybe you were going for the track, but yes, go for tracks. Ooh, that's a bummer. Who knows where that shot went? There we go.
Enemy is hit.
Keep him pinned down. Nicely
Enemy
done.
armor is hit.
There we go. All right, good takedown of the Eagle 7. It looked like you were thinking track. If you weren't, you got lucky. So think track if you weren't, but it looks like you were, so that was nicely done. All right, let's pause this. It's really even now, although we do have a decent hit point advantage right now. Your Tiger's pushing in, your Panther's pushing in. They feel like you guys are finally giving them some pressure from the south, and we're hanging out in this bush. What are we waiting for here? Well, we're waiting for someone to get lit that we can shoot like a sniper. Well, you're out of spotters, dude. You're it at this point. And because you're hanging out back here, your guys are dying like flies. So you have to get in there. And this, when you're a good player and you're dead and you're riding along, you've done your best to win the game, you've got a bunch of damage, and you're riding along with one of the guys that hung out at the cap, and they see someone doing what you're doing, they want to actually pull their hair out of their head. Okay, so we're being very careful. E25's going in. Finally moving forward. There's only one enemy already left. That's good news. You do want to be careful, though, because between the Panzer IVS and the Panther, they can machine gun you down. All right. Let's take a look at this and consider what we may or may not be spotting right now. We've come to this spot, but there's a lot of hill above us. You know they're in that low spot. You're just not going to see anything right here. Good job using the bush. That's a good job, but you got to get in there. The E25 is going, so you have to follow him. Go, 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 go. There we go. We find this guy. Go for a track and a damage.
Go through.
There it is. That's about right. There you go.
We didn't even scratch them.
All right, just
Armor is damaged.
again for the track thing. Once he started moving, I would have aimed for that sprocket right there. Panzer IVS is dead. You got to go, man. You got to push in. Unfortunately, you also lost your E25. So we finally get in here. This is actually pretty funny. Nicely done. The old ammo rack for the M4. Nicely done. We get spotted. I don't know why he doesn't just engage you. Although he camped as well, so basically an analog of what you were doing. He hung out at cap.
Target acquired.
We got an auto aim. We finally come up and over. There we go. Shoot him. Nicely done. Little drive-by, and then the arty finishes him off. And we come out of it with 2 kills, 1,654 damage, 837 assist. So definitely at critical. Hopefully it was constructive criticism there, which is what we try to do. Anybody else has any other advice down, go ahead and throw it down below in the comments. So to recap, the initial position I did not like. I think you could have got out of there. You wasted a lot of time being not relevant to the battle. When it became time for you to push forward and become relevant, you're very hesitant to do so. I get it. That happens with new players because when you first start, you want to. I'm in a tank. I want to get forward and battle and do all this, and you get wiped out. So the way you don't do that is you've got to pay attention to the flow, count noses. We didn't talk about that too much. There was a couple times on that match where you could have looked at the mini map, looked at what was left, and go, all right, I kind of know where everybody is. So if you know you're not going to get spotted, then you can move forward, kind of thing right there. And maybe we can cover that on another video. I hope that helps, man. I hope that helps you on your journey. You're not doing bad. 49% at your number of battles is actually pretty darn good. But you need to start creating your shots a little bit more. You need to be more carefully aggressive. Get your gun in the game. That doesn't mean YOLO forward and die. But you've got to figure out how to create some more shots per game. And you create some more shots per game with your general decent mechanics. And we did talk about a few things like camera work and gathering SA and such. But you use those general good mechanics that you have and you create some more shots, you're going to start seeing that win rate creep up. All right, man. I hope that's helped. I hope that helped. Thanks for sending that in. For everybody else, thanks for your support. As always, we will see you.